What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of CFP Talks. My name is Joe Nissom, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Mr. Andy Van Lanningham from our November cohort. Andy, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Joe, I'm good. It's good to see you on the other side of things. Usually your demeanor in class is like spot on. We're just kind of rolling through things, so it's nice to be on the other side of things and have the
It's
CFP
nice
mark.
to be
So
casual. It's nice to be
it's
friends.
nice to be casual. Yeah, yeah. You said we would be friends after,
Yeah, that's
and I think
true.
that's very true. Yeah. So it's no, I'm happy to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me, and more than happy to kind of tell people about my experience.
Yeah, awesome. So let's start off at the beginning of your journey. So
Yeah.
you've obviously been in the industry for some time. So, tell us a little bit about your career and at
Yeah.
what point in you were in the business when kind of CFP started getting interesting to you,
Yeah.
or when it became like, okay, now it's time to go and do my CFP. Start us off there.
Yeah, great question. So I'll kind of go back as far as I can, as far as when I started in the industry. So I've been in financial planning investments for 12 years now. Started out on the institutional side of things. So the first job I had, I was an investment operations analyst for a firm that managed 401k assets.
Oh, shoot. I
From
didn't
there,
even
I
know
moved to
that.
another. Sorry?
I don't think I knew that you were that far
Yeah.
back. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So 12 years. Again, it's institutional experience to begin with. And then I moved over to a small firm here in Portland that managed public funds. And about that time, I started, and this is all fixed income during my time in the institutional space. So after like 5 or 6 years about talking about bonds and exclusively bonds, I kind of wanted to broaden my horizons, right? A big thing for me, or big pull, is my dad was in the financial planning or an advisor for the past 45 years. He actually just retired. Congratulations, Dad. You did a great job. But it was just kind of in my blood and kind of in my family that like financial planning, helping others. I really wanted my career to go from institutional to helping out individuals and families. So there was this kind of this crossroad in my career where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go that institutional route anymore. I want to go private wealth management. And like, what do I like? What's kind of the standard there, right? And the first firm that I got it in with that was doing private wealth management, where I kind of made that split, was a firm that was very planning focused. So
Hmm.
there were a lot of CFPs around me. I'm very like grateful and appreciative of that experience and having those types of people around me where like that was the standard. We do comprehensive planning. We're CFPs around here. And so it just kind of naturally, I'm like, that's where I need to be.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's where I started my CFP process. And this was 4.5, 5 years ago, Joe. So I started
Okay.
this kind of unique. I started
Yeah.
this quite a while ago. Yeah,
So the interest was initial because once you got there, everybody around you was a CFP,
hmm
and now you're like, well, if I am going to do this, then I should probably do this as well. I should go
that's
down the
right.
CFP route.
That
Okay,
was the
so
standard.
tell
Yeah.
me about your initial experience, like through your education. What did you think of the educational process? Were you the type person that was like, let me just get through the education and then I'll prepare for the exam? Or were you somebody who kind of really embraced the education
Yeah.
and then kind of used that as a jumping point for the exam?
That's a great question. So moving over from the institutional side to private wealth management and starting the education process, it was kind of eye-opening, right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of blind spots that I found as far as things outside of just the investment space that I had worked in.
Mm.
And so I took the education probably more seriously than some others. I know a lot of people are like, hey, I just want to get through the education, get to the other side, pass the exam, and get this thing done with. I really just took it as an opportunity to learn as much as I can. I hadn't been on that side of the industry for very long, so it was just a really good way for me to build a solid foundation. It took me maybe a little bit longer than most people. I think 8 to 10 months, or most people, I would think I was right around like 12 or 13 months to get through the whole education. So a little bit longer than most, but I kind of was not in a huge rush. I wanted to make sure I was, doing my due diligence, taking my time, understanding the material. So yeah, I was really just getting my feet wet, to be honest.
So, what were kind of some of those blind spots that you were shocked by as you were going through it? Because I know for me, when I went through the education,
hmm
I felt like I was getting personally schooled in my own personal finance. I was like, I didn't know any of this for myself. And
Mhm.
like all of these opportunities that I could take advantage of, especially from the retirement planning side, from
Mhm.
time value of money was a
Yeah.
big one. And even though I covered it in college, it never quite hit until you're like, oh, I'm actually saving money and this matters.
Yeah.
So what were some of those blind spots for you that you felt like the education really kind of opened your eyes to?
I'd say the two major categories, Joe, were insurance and estate planning.
Mm,
Because those, like, when you're just strictly on the investment side of things, those just are not really popping up at all.
yeah.
So those two sections, I really kind of paused, took a step back, took my time. But yeah, those were the two like main topics that were very new to me. Even going through the CFP exam, funny enough, estate planning, as kind of challenging and as complex as it can be, that kind of became my favorite category, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. Just over time, I just got to learn it, enjoy it, understand how vital it is to a comprehensive plan. But those were probably the two biggest blind spot areas for me was insurance, estate planning. Obviously, retirement planning was a little bit new, but we all kind of know some of the ins and outs of the basics of, qualified retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, Roths. Obviously, the deeper I begin to dug into that, the more I kind of open my eyes to things. But estate planning, insurance, kind of by far were the blind spots. Yeah.
Okay, so now you get through the education. What was your initial experience with the exam?
Yeah, so the initial experience with the exam, I had only one financial exam test underneath my belt this time. I had my Series 65. I was working for an RIA.
Hmm.
And so I just was really overwhelmed by the whole process, to be honest with you. I didn't really know where to start. I was confused. I just didn't really have a good plan in place, to be honest with you.
Mm,
And I was one of those students, Joe, and I know you talk about this, where I had a spreadsheet, and I even did this kind of during your class as well, but we can talk about it a little bit further, where I just logged my hours. And I said, if I get to 300 hours, which is kind of that golden magic number, I think I should do fairly well on the exam. So I
mm,
kept logging my hours in this Excel sheet every day, every day, every day, but I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have a plan. I was in a self-study program, which
mm,
was fine.
yeah.
But just I needed more structure, I think. So I spent a lot of time just all over the place. And to be honest with you, I was that QBank person.
Mm,
I think, and this totally flipped from my previous experience where I failed, because this was my second attempt, where I was in the QBank, I would say 80, 90% of the time.
yeah.
And then with your program, I would flip that and I'd say everything else, 80, 90% of the time, like QBank quiz style questions, more that like 20 to 15% of
Yeah.
the time. Yeah.
Let me ask you that about that because I think it's a interesting thing where like on the back side of it, it makes a lot more sense. Like we don't necessarily learn from a Q bank. It's a testing
Yeah.
mechanism, but not necessarily a learning mechanism. And it's by design, it takes a lot of questions to learn a topic. So why did you think that you ended up in the Q bank? And I'll tell you, a lot of people have said, I just didn't know what else to do. Are you one of those people that felt like I really don't know what else to do? So here is something that I can do where I'm getting immediate feedback and immediate gratification of I get something right and I know
Yeah.
if I get something wrong and I can see an answer explanation. Do you feel like that's where you were? Were you somewhere different?
No, I think I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think a ton of it had to do with I just didn't know what else to do.
Hmm.
Okay, like reading through a textbook for an hour or two, like that didn't excite me. I didn't think that plan was going to work. Some of the FINRA exams, I do feel like you can get away with that a little bit more. Just living in the Q bank, kind of understanding the questions, how things are worded. And yeah, to be honest, I love that instant feedback, right? I'm pretty competitive. I like the yes or no. I got it right. I got it wrong. Get an explanation and move on, but how much of that is sticking, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just a really false sense of security that you can get by getting good scores in the Q bank. And I 100% I think was building up this false sense of security. Because actually, they weren't, my scores were not bad. The first time I took the exam and failed it,
Yeah.
like a lot of my quiz scores and practice exams were not that bad. But was I actually like understanding the material to actually go sit for that exam, the CFP board to throw whatever question they got at me, and for me to have like a good foundational base to answer those questions?
Yeah.
No, no.
Did you feel like you're somebody that kind of started getting used to the kind of the the zigs and zags of the Q bank where if they ask it this way, then I do this.
Yeah, you're talking about some of the nuances where you can kind of
Yeah.
like pick up on cues where, yeah, and that's what I found the CFP exam is no matter how many Q banks you do, and some definitely get closer to others, and we can talk about yours further down here if you'd like, Joe. But the way they know, I think they know in the back of their head that like, hey, this source, phrases questions this way, this source phrases questions this way. When you sit there for that exam, it's somewhat of a clean slate a little bit as far as how things are worded, the little nuances, and you just have to know the material. It comes down to that.
Hmm.
And living in a Q bank and picking up on these little nuances just through one, study provider, it's just pretty detrimental, I think. And your program is just you live in a program that's so far different than that.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's what got me over the edge, Joe, was not living in the Q bank, learning the material, having it stick, being able to sit for that exam, have the CFP board throw things at me where I'm actually like pulling back my memory from like learning the topics versus just Q bank, Q bank, Q bank, Q bank.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So what happened? So the first time you take it, what were your results like? Were you close to passing? Were you on the line? Were you surprised by your results? Like, did you do worse than you thought you were going to do? Because again, most people walk into the exam who are exactly in your shoes, and I have this conversation pretty much 2 or 3 times a week where I'm scoring in the 70s. Some
Yeah.
of my quizzes are even in the 80s. And then I go and I go 6 out of 8 red, or I go actually all 8 topics were red. And I'm shocked that I couldn't even get professional conduct or behavioral. And
Yeah.
that's like, always a slap in the face. Where were you in that realm?
Um, so I wanted to start with this story for this question. So I had a coworker. I had taken it in the November cycle again, like 4 years ago. I had a coworker take it in the March cycle, and him and I got the exact same score on the CFP mock exam, right?
Hmm.
So here's this another false sense of security
Okay.
through either a quiz, a Q bank, in this example, a CFP mock exam, where I'm like, Brian passed it with this score. Why can't I pass? I just got the same score as him. Why shouldn't I pass it?
Hmm.
But just because you get the same score as somebody on an exam or a quiz or a Q bank, or whatever, that does not dictate, in my opinion, your level of confidence or success that you might get on the exam.
Right.
So again, here's this another false sense of security I have going into the exam, Joe. I've met my 300 hours. I've gone through this study program. I've gotten the same score as somebody that just passed it in the spring on my CFP mock exam. Why would I not pass this?
Yeah.
So, I mean, to say I was confident going into that, I don't know. I was very nervous, very stressed out. And I think that's because there were so many unknowns in my head,
Yeah.
just because I stuck to the Q bank. My score, to be honest, I got pretty smoked by the
Hmm.
exam. I think I got 4 or 5 green in the passing side, and not by much. They were kind of just on that 50% line where I was over. The ironic thing, me coming from the investment side of the industry, guess where my scores were on the investment side of the industry, Joe?
Just pretty deep in the red.
Pretty deep in the red,
Yeah.
right? Which that was just like, holy smoke, this was supposed to be my bread and butter. Got smoked on that category. That was an eye opener. And then we can kind of talk about my journey from after kind of failing it and how I reset, but like discouraged for sure, right? Like,
Yeah.
what did I do wrong? I put in the hours, I put in the hard work that usually gets me through these types of things, and this time it didn't, right?
Hmm.
So like, how do I adjust? How do I, kind of refine the process? And I'm more than happy to kind of talk about my journey after
Yeah.
that. Um, but yeah, it's a tough thing to go through. It's a tough thing to go through failing it. At the time, I had one child. I now have two kids. So my wife was really helping out, stepped up to the plate, and going home to her with like a failed result was just like, it was
Oh,
crushing.
the
It was
worst.
really crushing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, really hard. I had to kind of regroup emotionally just to kind of like get back to work the next week.
Yeah. Especially when you're used to like you're doing well in your career and you're
Mhm.
going into work every day and you're being told like you're doing awesome at your job. We're so
Yeah.
happy you're here. You're doing well and with clients. And I think it's very hard to kind of discern those two things of I'm really good at my job, therefore I'm going to do well on this exam and then kind of especially doing poorly on the areas that you thought you were going to do well on.
That was the most shocking part. Yeah, You're exactly right. And I want to add this caveat on here too, Joe. And I think this is a big part of kind of my process and just overall timeline is at the time I was at a job where for me to go, I was an associate wealth advisor. For me to go to like that real wealth advisor level where you are managing the relationships, you have your own book of business, I needed to have my CFP. So it
Hmm.
was really a career killer for me at that time. And I
Yikes.
was starting to question everything.
Oh
Is
yeah.
this the right industry for me? Am I ever going to get past this exam? Should I keep going? And so there were, 6 months or a year of just kind of doubt. What am I doing? If I can't get through the CFP exam, is this the right industry? Is this the right business? And I had to wrap my head around that for quite a while to see, okay, do I want to keep going down this path?
What encouraged you to keep going?
What really encouraged me to keep going was so I joined a new firm about 12 months ago and just had like this new spark of energy, right? I
Yeah.
came from the RIA side. I'm now with a broker dealer. I'm independent. I have my own book of business. And so on this side of things, I had to pass my life and health insurance exam. I had to retake my Series 63 because it had expired. I had to retake my SIE exam. And then I had to take my Series 7 for the first time. So within the last year, in the first 3 or 4 months of starting my new job, I passed four exams. And so like momentum was starting
Yeah.
to like build itself as far as like my confidence, my test taking skills.
Mm.
Here I am. I became this partner at this, really great firm surrounded by great advisors. Again, advisors that really value comprehensive financial planning. They're CFPs. That's the standard at this firm, right? Um, so I get done with this, and my partner who I work with, I go, I just want to do the CFP. I want to knock it out. She was a little hesitant, and rightfully so. She goes, "Hey, this is your first year. You're independent. You're kind of growing your book. Maybe put this on the sideline, try and take care of it next year." And my personality and just kind of who I am, Joe, and the momentum I had been building, I'm like, I got to get this done. I
I
want to
know.
get this done now. And at that juncture, that's when I reached out to you. We had conversations about some of the series exams,
Yeah.
but I was like, I need to call Joe and get something in place, get a plan in
Yeah.
place, because I just want to knock this out. Because in a blink of an eye, I'm 5 years down my career. My kids are 5 years older, and now I don't know if I'm ever gonna take this thing. And so in
Yeah.
my mind, it's like it kind of was a now or never a little bit.
Mm.
I kind of put that on the exam. So
Yeah, because we had initially had some conversations in August of 2024, and that was at the point you were making the transition, if memory serves me correctly. And I remember you were like, FINRA and this, but you're like, can we talk about CFP? And then we had that conversation. And then I hadn't
uh,
heard from you in a while. And then you went and you passed all your tests and you come back.
yeah.
And so we sit down. So, what were your initial impressions of me saying, let's go back to your fundamentals? Let's
Mhm.
shore that up and let's do it in open answer. And, you and I work together week to week on those fundamentals for a fairly good period of time where I really pushed you and on getting
Yeah.
your fundamentals down. What did you think of that process initially? And then did that evolve as we were going through stuff and I was kind of throwing different assignments at you that
Yeah.
really required both your knowledge of the calculator, your knowledge
Mhm.
of obviously the conceptual CFP part. What
Mhm.
were your kind of initial impressions and how did that evolve over time?
Yeah. So I'm going to start from the beginning of our conversations, right? Regarding the CFP. So I reached out to you. You're right. We talked first in 2024. I reached out to you March of 25
That's
of
right.
earlier this year.
Yep.
And I just said, "Hey, Joe, let's do it. I need to do this." And I was very upfront with you and honest as far as Joe, I have two kids. My wife works full time. I work full time. I'm not going to be that student that starts studying 2 or 3 months out of the exam for 48 hours a day. I just don't have that. That's just not kind of my lifestyle right now. I can't do that. I can give you 2 hours a day leading up to the 8 week class session, and then I can pump it up from there. But this is kind of my parameters. When should I start? And so you laid out this great timeline. You and I started working together in April, and I started in, for the November exam. So I gave myself a pretty good leeway as far as
Yeah.
building up time, building up that foundation like you talked about. And I haven't really seen this material much, at all in the last 3.5, 4 years.
That's right.
Now, I did have more years under my belt as far as experience. So I think that did come into play a lot. I was able to connect dots a little bit better just through reps of meetings, more years experience in the industry.
That's right.
But what you did, yeah, we did a lot of open-ended stuff to begin with. We met once a week from April, yeah, until April, until that group class started in September.
Yeah.
And it was just building things up, building things up, building things up. And I had a little note on my computer that said 1% better every day. I just need to get a little bit better every single day. I took 2 days off from April until the exam in November. And part of that, Joe, was like, you gave me a schedule and something to stick to where I could feel the momentum, feel things starting to stick. And I just couldn't, I just had a really, really hard day, a time taking a day off
Yeah.
because I was just on such a momentum run. But sorry, to really answer your question, the open-ended stuff really was like it gets your brain really thinking, opposed to like, I'm in a Q bank, here's a 2 sentence question, and here are four answers. The open-ended, you're diving in. You can spend
Yeah.
30, 45 minutes, an hour on one question where you're digging really deep, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the foundation comes.
Yeah.
And so that open-ended work was just like crucial to me to like getting my baseline back, right?
Yeah.
And then we started to build from there. And I think that was kind of part of your plan.
Yeah, and I think like after you don't look at the material for 4 years or 3.5 years, whatever that timeline ended up being, we have to go back and start from scratch at that point. And
We
when we
did.
looked at it together, and I think our first class was the beginning of May. I think it was
Hmm.
May 1st actually, and then you
Okay.
had started the week prior, and
Yeah.
you come in, you're doing your assignment, but I think the one thing that I really liked what I was seeing as we were going through the initial 12 weeks was it forced you to connect things. It
Hmm.
wasn't like here's a client recommend a investment, A, cumulative preferred stock, B, participating preferred stock, C, non-cumulative preferred. It was like here's a recommendation, recommend it. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, well, I could go this way because of X, Y, and Z, or I can go this way because of X, Y, and Z. And I
Hmm.
keep connecting it back to the question. And what that starts to train your brain is to become a problem solver.
Hmm.
And that's ultimately what we want for all of our CFPs because that's what the job requires. And that's
Yeah.
what the board, has made it very apparent that you guys are no longer number crunchers,
Yeah.
right? We have
Yeah.
software for that. We have AI for that. We have more than enough tools for everybody
Yeah.
that will do a lot of the number crunching, but you guys have to be the problem solving and mix that in with the behavioral side of this practice. But
Hmm.
again, it requires you to be able to recall things off the top of your head in real time.
Hmm.
Can you do that? And
Yep.
that was nice to get you that foundational part where it was structured but not overly intense.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Yeah, like it was dipping my toes in the water and
Yeah.
just kind of going a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. Um, and again, like you laid out a plan, you laid out a structure for me. And one of those initial conversations we had is like, Joe, I just need you to tell me how to get from A to B here on
Yeah.
this exam. I will do what you tell me, but I just need someone to give me some guidance.
Yeah.
And like that's what you did. And like, I put my full faith, trust in you. I had seen your videos. I had seen the stuff you've done. I'm like, this guy takes a lot of pride in his program. You
A
do
lot.
just, being through, yeah, you do take a lot of pride in your program. You take a lot of pride in getting students through this exam. And like, I could just feel that. I could just like
Yeah,
sense that. I'm like, and that was like a huge draw to me. Like, yeah, all the material, all the stuff you build is awesome, but like Joe Nissom, I was like, I want to work with Joe Nissom.
that's
And
awesome.
here was my thought, Joe, in my head. I go, I might not pass the first time with Joe, but I think it's very, very hard for me to imagine that I would not pass,
Yeah.
that I would take the exam twice and not pass.
Yeah,
And
I
so that was kind of
mean,
that was kind of always in the back of my head, like, you know what, I might need to take this again in March. But if I do what Joe tells me, I think it's very hard fetched that I'm going to fail this exam twice underneath your program.
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah.
let's keep going here. So we end your fundamentals piece.
Yep.
I think we end like mid-August, right? We give you a
Mhm.
little bit of a break, say go relax. You do none of that. You don't relax at all. You keep going.
Yeah. No, man, I wasn't relaxed. Yeah.
So we start back early September, and
Yeah.
obviously, right from day one of class, obviously the intensity picks up.
Yep.
And you get to start working with some team members, which obviously you had a couple of people in class that you studied with on a very regular basis with.
Hmm.
And one of those people was in your time zone, which, you and I had connected prior and said, hey, I think you should go and study with one of the other people in our class who will also be on this podcast later next week.
Hmm.
And you guys kind of hit it off right from the beginning. It seemed like your studies, your styles complemented each other because you guys really were very different in your approach,
Yeah.
which really worked out well because it was kind of like a little yin and yang. But
Yeah.
what were your initial impressions of, okay, now here is open answer supercharged in the first 4 weeks of class?
Yeah.
What were your kind of initial impressions? And again, how did that evolve through those first 4 weeks?
Yeah. So first of all, you and I had been working together for months, right? So
Yeah.
like when we got to like the group, the class setting, I was like pumped. So
Yeah.
okay, the first like step of this is over. Like this is the last leg.
Yep.
So I was just like really excited to dive in, get some other people around me. I think the biggest thing, Joe, was like the sense of community you get working in a small cohort like that, right?
Yeah.
10 people, we're all in the same boat. This is stressful. We're all anxious. And you're right, I did connect with someone. Actually, before the class even started, you sent out an email to everyone that was going to be part of the class. I found this person, reached out to him via LinkedIn. Him and I connected, and like we leaned on each other throughout the whole process, which I'm very thankful for. So yeah, when we started diving in, again, it was a little bit of what we had worked on in the previous months, but it was ramping up as far as the level of detail that was expected. We were obviously getting together 3, 4 times a week if you had the office hours versus just
Yep.
once a week.
Yep.
So the commitment was kind of like was bumping up, but the repetitions, like that's what kind of gets you through, right? And when you're meeting with you and Ramen and the rest of your classmates 3 to 4 times a week, you're getting all these reps in, right?
Mm.
Reps, 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 reps. And the open-ended questions, again, you're just diving into one question that can take you 45 minutes. I think we joked about this, Joe. I'm like, I could have spent 2 hours on this one question. And like you're probably don't do that. Like
Mm.
you're gonna find rabbit holes very quickly
Yeah.
if you start going through that route. But it's funny, Joe, because I didn't touch like a one of your typical provider Q banks in a while, even though I had purchased one on the side. And I think we were like 3 or 4 weeks in, right, where we were starting to get into the quizzes and like, really ramping up the questions. And I'm like, I just want to open up this Q bank to see how it feels. And the way my brain was like operating to work myself through questions was just on a different level.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to your process and these open-ended questions. Like I could just feel myself going so much deeper. And that's just a testament to kind of the process. And it was I texted the gentleman that I had connected with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just went into this Q bank that I haven't been in 3 or 4 weeks, kind of post Joe's initial open-end question. And I'm like, I'm looking at questions so much differently.
Yeah.
And so that was just like it literally was an eye-opener to me.
And that's the goal of the open answer is that again, we want to draw connections of the material where you're not becoming a pattern recognition master.
Yeah,
Great. Anybody can go, I associate X with Y, or I'm familiar with this,
yeah,
because you and I both know that, question writers are not stupid. They know what's out there. There isn't, 50 CFP providers, there's only a
Mhm.
handful. And obviously, even of the handful, there are certain providers that are, you know, most students go with.
Yeah, yeah,
And so we know the way that those questions are written. We see it, and and again, this is not anything against those test providers because
sure.
it's a part of the process. It's, how we tend to use those things is that if you start becoming a QBank jockey, you just get really good at just getting through questions
Yeah,
without necessarily putting any thought behind it. And that's exactly what we are looking for is, oh, I know that answer without even having to read A, B, C, and D. I know that
yeah,
answer. I know that answer. And if you're doing
yeah,
that, you know, if you take any group of 10 questions and six or seven of them you're able to answer them without even looking at an answer,
yeah,
we've succeeded
yeah,
because you know a good majority of the material you can guess your way through the last couple and still score
uh-huh.
very, very well. But
Yep,
again, the goal was to draw the connection because we have no idea ever what's going to be on the exam.
yeah,
And even if you've taken the exam in the past, that doesn't necessarily indicate that you're going to see a similar exam going
yeah,
forward. We just
yeah,
don't know. We never know what's going to be there. And I think that's a good thing that the board institutes that, again, your past experience won't necessarily be like your future, other than you're going to get 3 hours and 3 hours and 170 questions. But,
yeah,
they can run the gamut of things that they want to test versus where they don't want to test. And I think
yeah,
that's great because we never are walking into a client meeting knowing what we're going to
yeah,
get. We have an
yeah,
idea, but we never know what we're going to get.
yeah.
So now
It's a good point.
we close up the first part of it, and I kind of close it up. All right, guys, now it's time to start ramping up for the exam. And I
Yeah,
remember that there's a point in this process, and cumulative five is our rite of passage. There is it's probably the most difficult cumulative that we have.
yeah.
Um, but at some point in that process, and I would say it would probably be about the 2 week mark into that process or 6 weeks within our class,
Hmm.
like a calm came over you and you started kind of like really like there's certain angst to just the process and the class and wanting to get things done and running around.
Yeah.
And what was kind of crazy is that now this is the point where you're up to doing 100 questions a day, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden Zen monk Andy starts walking into class every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. What do you think happened there? Like, what was the mental shift that happened at that point? Was it like enough repetition that you started to feel confident because you're like, yeah, I know I didn't score well on this test, but like and specifically like on one of the cumulatives, you really didn't do so hot. And we
Yeah.
looked at it and we go, okay, who cares? And then we moved on to the next one because
Hmm.
I was more interested in the audit of the exam than how you particular performed on it.
Hmm.
But what was that mental shift that kind of happened somewhere in that process? Because as we were starting to get to your second and third mock, you had just really kind of like there's some air that was let out of the balloon. What happened in that time frame?
It's a really good question. And I think part of it, Joe, is I had to let some steam out those first 4 weeks. As far as
Yeah,
like, I had a few moments, and anyone who goes through this process, I guarantee you, you will have probably one or two moments within the 8 week process where you're like,
generous.
holy smoke. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. We're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah,
Um, and I had like that, I had my two moments within those
yeah,
first 4 weeks.
yeah.
And kind of the last one I had, I was just so, I think it was one of those cumulatives that you mentioned that I just got just smoked on. super defeated. This was not feeling good about myself. Like I'm putting in all this work, all this time. I reach out to you, I reach out to Ramen, and I remember I call Ramen and I'm just venting. And he goes, "Are you done?" I go, "Well, I don't know, not yet. But I got a little bit left if you want it."
I got 5 more minutes, but
I
okay,
got five more.
fine.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a little bit more time. But he goes, just stop. He goes, just stop. You need to move on. He goes, I get it. This is really hard. And so I had a really good conversation with Ramen. You and I had a really good email conversation back and forth. And something you said really stuck with me, and I took it to heart. You said, this is a super messy process.
Hmm,
It's not perfect. And if it is too smooth and too perfect, you're not learning and you're not doing it right.
yeah,
And I was like, well, it's starting to get really messy. So maybe some progress is actually
yeah,
being made, right?
yeah,
So I think those first 4 weeks, you're super anxious. You're starting the class. You're really trying to figure out like where do I stand in this thing, right?
yep,
I had spent 3 or 4 months with you, and now really it's like okay, the barometer's starting to show where am I? Am I going to be able to pass this thing?
yeah,
Um, and then I get to like the second stage of your class, right? The last 4 weeks, where maybe on the outside it seemed like I had been calming down a little bit, but I think on the inside I'm like, this is it. Like no more excuses, no more BS, no more, woe is me, no more kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I have got to just buckle up. And the gentleman I'd partnered with, he was just super uplifting, like was always like, dude, let's go. You got this. I got my money on you. Like from day one, you've been crushing it. And so I just had to like put my head down, man, and just like focus. So I think that was probably some of it, Joe, was just the second level of just like focus and intensity where all the other stuff just had to go away.
yeah,
And I just had to be dialed in. And I've been working on this for 4 or 5 months. And like, this is it.
yeah. And
Final stretch.
yeah, I
Let's
know
let's move on.
personally for me, like when I put in the work, it starts to calm me down because all
Yeah.
the unknowns start disappearing. It's like, how many
Yeah.
more unknowns can there possibly be? Like I've done the work, like I sat there and I trudged through it.
Yeah.
So, like you can, if you're gonna throw something at me, maybe I'm strong enough now where I can deal with it, And
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
is like it starts becoming less anxiety ridden because you start to feel more capable because you
Yeah.
start to put in the work and that's
Yeah.
kind of the wonderful part. So, obviously it's intense, lots of moments of doubt, right?
Lots
We
of them.
we
Yeah.
we gave you a bunch of pep talks, Robin probably more than me. But you
Hmm.
and I had a conversation on Zoom and we had a couple conversations
Right.
and the theme of the story was you should feel this way. It's a tough process.
Yeah.
You just can't stop.
You can't stop. Yeah, that was the thing. Just like keep going. And I want to touch on one thing you just said there is, yeah, I felt more confident that okay, if the CFP board throws some crazy question at me, I think I can work my way through it. But also, I had to be very okay, and I think a lot of students have to be okay with. They're going to throw you something that you probably have no idea about,
True.
and that's okay. You have 170 questions. There is some room for error. You're most likely not going to get 95% on the exam. And so there's just no guarantees like you and I talked about. And I had to live with that, be okay with like, I'm putting in the time, I'm going through the process. If it doesn't work this time, that's okay. I need to move on. But I'm the type of person I love guarantees. We all do, Joe. We like
Yeah, of
security,
course.
we like promises. And I think during the process, you're trying to like grasp for things of like, am I gonna pass? Am I gonna pass? Like going down the Reddit pages and things like that. And you have to be okay with like some level of certainty. A, just like overall, are you gonna pass or not? And B, just like what's gonna be on the exam. They're
Yeah.
gonna throw some, kind of really, wild things at you, and you just have to be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
and I will say, I think the CFP board strikes me as being fair, not
Yeah.
easy, but fair.
Yeah.
There
Couldn't
are
agree more.
absolutely some things at a left field there that you're not going to expect, but I think for a majority of the exam, it's gonna be in line with the preparation.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
So
Yeah.
let's chat a little bit about exam day. How did you
Hmm.
feel going into the exam day? How did you feel like you managed yourself through the exam? Was it
Yeah.
similar to what you did in your mocks? Do you feel like by the time I was done with my last mock, I kind of had my process down and I was ready for exam day.
Yeah, I think about a week and a half, 2 weeks out, I'm like, let's roll. Like, I'll take this thing tonight. Like, I'm feeling pretty good. Not super confident to the point where like,
Yeah.
I know 100% sure I'm gonna pass, but just kind of like I'm feeling pretty good about my level of knowledge. I'm in a good spot, and really, I was in a good spot like mentally. Like you said, I
Yeah.
just had kind of calmed down a little bit, and I think that just comes with confidence. Like nothing else is gonna like calm those nerves besides just having building up your confidence over time, and your program definitely did that for me. Um, really like the day before is what I remember the most. I almost remember the day before I failed the first exam more than the actual day of. I was
Yeah.
so nervous, really anxious during that first time when I failed it. This time around, I felt just more calm and confident. And I think that's just
Mm.
knowledge going through the process and just being okay with the results are going to be what they are. Your process, Joe, you're like, try and simulate that exam the best that you can. Go to a library, go somewhere different. Don't have headphones on. I love to listen to music when I'm working or studying. And so not having music or headphones on makes me feel a little uncomfortable, to be honest.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting in a library and you're hearing people tapping and people coughing, like that simulates kind of that real exam experience. Again, simulating it 2 or 3 times before the actual, the real deal was extremely helpful for me. And then, I had taken 4 exams earlier that year. So again, I had been familiar with the test center, familiar with the routine a little bit. So I kind of was like running it through my head. Okay, what is this going to be like? And then going through the exam itself, it is a roller coaster. You
Mm.
go through, a stretch of 10 questions that you're like, I nailed those. Those felt really good. You go through another stretch of 10 questions that you're like, oof, I don't know. Those are that was challenging. And so like you're just kind of like
Yeah.
you're trying to stay as steady as possible. And I'm a big golfer, Joe. And so like I had this golf analogy, like one shot at a time.
Yep.
And it was like just one question at a time. Like if I have a bad question, I'm not feeling good about it. Like golf, you hit a bad shot, you move on. You have to let it go by the next shot or the next question on the exam. And just trying to give each question 110%, no matter how good or bad those last 20 questions had gone. And to be honest, I got to the end and I, pressed that submit button, which is like the worst and the best feeling in the world. And I was unsure.
Yeah.
You could have flipped a coin if really, I was not, I didn't know. And so to get that pass, I was just like, beside myself. So
Yeah. And you were the first person to go. So it was like you set the
yeah,
tone. Like I was like,
I
"Phew.
was.
All
I was the
right, good
first person
man."
to go, so like I wanted to set the tone for the group, and so I felt a little bit of pressure on that, just to like, hey, I want the students in my class to feel good about the process, what Joe's done, and
Yeah.
so for me to pass, obviously felt fantastic for me and my family, but hopefully gave the other students like a little umph and little like, okay,
Yeah, for
Andy
sure.
got through this, I can get through it too.
Yeah, and I purposely don't share results as they're coming in just
Mhm.
because, if you're the last person going, you don't want to hear that everybody else passed and now you're sitting there going,
Oh
"Oh
boy.
man, I better be the one. I don't want to
Yeah,
mess this
yeah,
up."
yeah,
So
yeah,
we wait until everybody passes and we kind of end up sharing results, but
yeah.
let's end on this note. Now that you're through this, you're on the other side, you didn't have the process is always different than what we expect it to be. And for everybody who's going to go take the exam in 2026,
Mhm.
what is your piece of advice that you would tell them, like, go and do this, or and feel free to give them one or two pieces of advice. What would you tell somebody now being on the other side, and especially now because it's been about 5 or 6 weeks since you passed, so the
Mhm.
emotions have kind of rushed out, and now
Yeah,
you get to use that.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
my all the emotions have flushed out. So what do you think? Reflect on the journey that started back in May, that ended in November.
Yeah.
What would you tell people?
I think a lot of people say start early. I know that's really cliche, Joe, but like I do agree with that. Like give yourself some time, give yourself a buffer, but also just like understand like your learning style and like your study habits, I think are really good. Not every, study mold fits every, particular person.
Sure.
So just understand how you study, right? Like, for example, I put a whiteboard up in my office here because I was so tired of sitting down in this chair
Oh
for
yeah.
hours a day that I just wanted to stand up and be active. So I
Hmm.
put up a whiteboard and I was just kind of like drawing out stuff, like literally talking myself through things, Joe, like I was teaching a class.
Nice.
And that just like so like just pick up on things like that does like work for you. That worked for me. For somebody else, that might be like, hey, that's a terrible idea. But I had a whiteboard, and what I would do, Joe, is I'd write down terms or things that I wasn't sure about, and I'd write down like five, six, seven bullet points. I would take a picture of it with my phone, and then you can search, within your iPhone like this topic. And so like I
Oh,
used that.
sick.
That was super helpful for me. So I think just having a whiteboard, talking things out, like even if it's with a partner or not, I would just sit here talking to myself. My wife probably thought I was losing my marbles, which is might be fair,
Yeah, it's
but
true.
I was
What's
literally just like
happening?
talking myself through questions and through topics. Find a partner. Like
Yeah.
you and Ramen nail on this. Find somebody that you can talk through things with, and it's going to help you on two levels. It's going to help you through the, just learning the material. And you guys say the best way to learn something is to teach something. And so that's really, really good advice. I would strongly recommend people do that. And then there's just like the emotional um, part of it of like, I can lean on this person, they can lean on me.
Yeah.
Just like going through the process together with somebody or through a small group like you had. Again, like a sense of community was just like so huge that I think a lot of people don't talk about. Your process, everything you have in place, Joe, is amazing. But I think the number one thing for me is like the sense of community I got from
Yeah.
being around you, Ramen, and just all the other students. So start early, find what study habits work for you, whether it's a whiteboard, whether it's flashcards. And that's one thing you did. You provided flashcards for me. Like that's what I needed was like that type of structure,
Yeah.
and having that thing all laid out, everything laid out in front of me. So like your learning style, understanding that, and just partnering up with somebody, like go through the process with someone because it's
Hell yeah.
stressful. It's hard. There's a lot going on. We all have jobs, lives, families, what have you. It's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. So have someone
And
there, with
yeah,
you.
I mean, and you need somebody honestly just to vent because it's a
Yeah.
frustrating process. You need somebody to be like, fucking Joe in class today. He wanted us to do this. What? Why is he making us? And the other person's going, well, because actually it makes sense because of this, and you're like, yeah, but I'm not gonna. And I do it all the time. Like anytime that I have a coach, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
They're gonna, you know, that's the beauty of a rational
Yeah.
set of eyes is they are gonna see things that you can't,
Yeah.
that they believe are necessary for what you're doing. And it's always great to have somebody to kind of vent it out with. And you're like, oh, okay, fine. Or whatever, I'll
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
But
And don't get me wrong, I had some venting sessions, but here's what we always came back to, Joe, is Joe's process works. So I could complain, I can moan, I could do all the things I want to do, but your results speak for themselves.
yeah,
And I kept thinking that in my head. I'm like, Joe's process works. Joe process works. So
yeah.
like, yeah, there are times where you want to vent and like,
Oh,
do your
you
thing,
should
and it's
you should
fine
want
and
to
have
rip my
that.
head off at least 2 to 3 times during this
Two to
process.
three a week. A week.
But that's how we know you're getting somewhere because like we said, it's a messy process, but
The messy process.
it's
And
a
I
good
didn't want
one.
someone to be easy on me.
Yeah.
That's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I wanted someone to be hard with me, strict, keep me on point. If I'm out of line, I mean, Ramen called me out in one class section where I was just going down this kind of rabbit hole on a question. And
Yeah.
like that's what I signed up for.
Yeah. And that's what
I
we all
needed
need.
that.
We
I
all
needed that.
we all need it.
Yeah.
It's a lost art. We get it in class as kids and then we lose it. We lose it in college.
Mhm.
It's why a lot of people do well in college and others do not.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need that structure, especially when you're doing something difficult. Well,
Yeah.
but thank you for doing this. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Congratulations. This is such a wonderful accomplishment and hopefully just the first of many. and
That's
hopefully
right.
there's more things coming down the line as your career grows and expands. It's a wonderful place to be, and I'm sure you're making
Yes,
your
sir.
dad very, very proud.
Thank you.
45
Thank you.
years
I
at
appreciate
Smith
that,
Barney,
Joe.
right?
Yeah, yeah, started, yeah, Smith Barney a long time ago. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like me, just like me.
Just
All right.
like you. Yeah, that's right. Well, Joe, I appreciate you. You and Raman's program is awesome. I highly recommend it. If anyone wants to reach out to me, like via LinkedIn, and just have conversations about my experience, I'm more than happy to jump on the phone.
It's awesome.
All
Thank you,
right.
everybody, for watching. With any questions, reach out and please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And we will see you guys next time.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Joe.